Thank you, and thank you everyone, both young policymakers and older policymakers who are, we thought we'd get a bit of demographic diversity into the room tonight. Look, firstly, welcome, Wisa, to Per Capita. It's really great to have you leading the organisation into its next era. I also want to particularly pay tribute to both Meredith and Rebecca, who have been working so hard to keep the organisation really humming through a transition period. And if you guys haven't met either of those two, you should tonight. I'm really proud to support Per Capita. I'm on the board. I do all my volunteer work through the Centre of the Public Square because I think it's really important that we need to all be thinking as well as doing. And I think think tanks are really important at the moment when there's just such wicked problems that are emerging so quickly. And I think, my thinking around framing up the centre of the public square, apart from the fact that it was a play on words, was that idea, and I know I've spoken to a number of you, particularly Tony, about this over many years, that the space that holds us together has been fragmented by design, and it's been fragmented by the business models that drive extractive, exploitative technology, and from where I can see it, unless we build alternatives, we're pretty fucked. One of those challenges is the collapse of countervailing power, which is what J.K. Galbraith used to describe the networks that used to provide ballast for democracy. So it wasn't just an election and citizens, it was unions and churches and neighbourhood groups and chambers of commerce and progress associations, and people joined things. And the atomisation is really a feature, not a bug, of the world that we have allowed to be built around us. And we all kind of find it like convenient to use various tech tools without always thinking through what the implications will be. So I've become really passionate and interested about this probably since about 2019, when I thought I was writing a book about being a Gen X, where it's the only part of my life where I'm a minority group. So I was really into generational politics. But I basically wrote myself into saying the big change I'd lived through was going from being somebody that grew up before the internet, experiencing it, and then starting to question it. And it became a bit of almost wrote my politics out of it, which isn't really left or right. Like, there's a bit of a sense that the left's always been progressive and the right conservative, but I think thoughtful conservatism around rapid change has real value. So sort of started working with Per Capita, working with Digital Rights Watch, which is a terrific organisation, working with universities, using my existing clients I work with, trying to get them thinking about it as well, to really think all this stuff through. And it's an ongoing conversation. It's kind of been turbocharged by the rapid creation and diffusion of whatever it is that AI means, which I think is really a contested term and one of the triumphs of the marketing of this particular breed of energy sapping, labour killing, culture destroying, democracy breaking, fast processing information, is that it's been framed as some form of intelligence where it's not. And just building some literacy around that, I think, is really important. So we're about to do a national roadshow. I can't believe we've pulled this off. So Burning Platforms, which is me, Lizzie from Digital Rights Watch, and the great Dan Stinton, who used to run Guardian Australia but now runs a health startup, Health Engine, have been running a little podcast for about 4 years. We have a very loyal following, but it's very select, like most podcasts, but we really kick around all the ideas. And we've, through serendipity, got a bit of funding to run some town halls around the country in October around this theme: how can democracy survive AI? So we're putting together what I hope will be a conversation to inspire people to think more critically and get more active around some of these issues. So tonight is like a dress rehearsal. Like, when I had the opportunity to talk at a policy group, what should we do? We should sort of see if this is going to work. So you are my guinea pig. So I want to take you through some of the... I'm not going to do the whole show because there's 3 of us and a couple of guests, and I haven't worked out all the jokes yet, but I'd love everyone to pull out their phones and just be my guinea pig and go through and at the end tell me if this is working or what else we should be trying. So everyone's used Menti before, haven't they? Go in there, use your QR code or type it in, put your thumbs up. I'm going to wait until I've got quorum. My son's trying to ring me on my phone while I'm doing this, which is always a joy. 3 thumbs up, 12 people in there. That's not everyone. I'll give you a couple more minutes. We've been using this a lot. What I really love about this tool is it collapses the stage from the audience. So you actually get, an opportunity for the audience to drive the conversation. And we've used it particularly at the moment, we're using it for consultations on aged care reform with CODA. When people feel like they're being heard and they can see in real time, it does create a more engaging environment. All right, so we've got that all going. Why don't we start with a simple question? Like, how would you describe your relationship with tech? If you're tech savvy, go up that end. If you're a Luddite, go down there. And if you're in the middle, you know how to do a 3. Ooh, no Luddites. The reveal is if you call yourself tech savvy, you're probably not tech savvy. But, I think particularly with, like how many people have played it? How many people use like ChatGPT? How many people have mucked around with it? How many people think it's pretty awesome? How many people kind of use it as a search engine? How many people have got creepy AI companions in their ear telling them how much they love them? It's a thing. Like, there's a fantastic article in the last issue of Wired. This journalist takes 3 people on a couple's retreat with their intimate AI companions. It is messed up. But this is the kind of technology that's coming onto the market with no regulation. It's like, let's just see what will happen. What could go wrong? I am so disappointed to see that there are no Luddites, because that's where I'd be. Oh, thank you. You're too busy drinking beer to use your phone. So can I tell you why I love the Luddites? Because people say I'm a Luddite as if it's a self-deprecating. I can't, it is true, I can't find a chord. But the Luddites were really interesting in that, do people know the story? Like early 19th century, so 1810, they came up with this automation. The Luddites were people that made the high quality aristocrat stockings, and it was a real, it was beyond a trade, it was a lifestyle. It was done in villages and families, and a new technology came in that basically just automated it all. And they said, hold on, what's happening to us? But they didn't just say, like, we're going to go away. Where jobs were destroyed, they started breaking the machines, burning the factories. They were amazing, and they've been misrepresented for a number of reasons. One of the reasons they've been misrepresented was that they weren't against the technology, they were against the way it was introduced and what it was doing. And they were also fantastic campaigners. Like, they campaigned around an avatar. Ned Ludd was a make-believe figure that they created, this mythical hero that would then sign their name. Ned Ludd was this mythical son of a stocking maker, and they all, and it was like this whispers, and it was like secret societies getting out. But whenever a factory was burned or a machine was broken, it would be done courtesy of Ned Ludd. There's a great book on this called Blood in the Machine by Brian Merchant, and I just commend it to everyone. It is just remarkable. They were targeted and strategic. They picked off the worst of the factory owners to educate the many. They were nimble, and they almost won. They only got defeated really when the full weight of the crown was deployed in those regions. And this is where I'm doing a dry run, and I've got to get the actual regions right, but you're with me so far, right? Tony will tell you also, like, and they got crushed. Some of them were hung. Some of them were transported to Australia. Conviction politics, one of Tony's many fantastic projects, charts some of the Luddites and where they landed in Australia. So they've kind of become a historical punchline, but from the wreckage, the first guilds emerged that would form the unions, that would drive the factory acts, that would civilise the Industrial Revolution. So when I talk about Luddites, I think, I'm always in meetings where people go, I'm not a Luddite, but I go, you want to be a Luddite. Like, we all should be Luddites. Anyway, they're my heroes and I'm proud to be called one, and I want more people to call themselves Luddites. They're also, I'll tell you what, don't know how I'm going to weed this in. This is modern machine breakers. There were these engineers at the University of Chicago. Again, I've got to get their names so I can come out. They built a program that if you were doing art or putting artwork on the internet, they provided a filter, and then when the illegal AI machines came over to scrape it, it would misread like a dog as a cat, and it didn't just stop it working, it totally fucked up the models. It's just brilliant. So I'll have to dig that guy out and make that work better too. All right, so yes, we've gone back to where we shouldn't be. So yes, we think we're tech savvy, but we all should be Luddites. What about talking about AI risk and opportunity? 3 categories, again, play with your phone if you want: your work, the economy, and democracy. Risk and opportunity, sorry, I didn't really say. So do you see it as more risk or opportunity? That's interesting. So while we're tech savvy, we're skeptical of whatever it is we call AI. Work's really interesting. The guy, it's an interesting company. Have people heard of Anthropic? So it's one of the large language models that was actually set up by guys that were in OpenAI that quit OpenAI because OpenAI had stopped caring about safety and long-term risk. And so they set up something that's apparently a better large language model. And this guy said, you know, our projection is one in 2 entry-level jobs will be taken away. So in terms of young policy makers or people that want to work in policy, your best chance of getting a job is to fight AI because you've got a 50% greater chance of actually having an entry-level job. He reckons 1 in 2 jobs will go. If you look at the way a lot of people are using this in workplaces, it's this thing, we'll take the all the higher level thinking, smart, powerful people can continue to do, but all the menial, lower level stuff like meeting notes or, you know, literary scans and things, we can automate all that via predictive text, of course. Problem is, to get to higher level thinking, you need to do the lower level work as well. If you don't sit through meetings and synthesize notes, you don't do the thinking that actually lets you take the next step up. And I think particularly for young people, you talk about intergenerational inequity and you talk about housing, you talk about climate. This is so fucked for young people to get a start in the workplace. I could also, and I'm not sure how I'll weave this in, does everyone know the current economist who's got the Nobel Prize? I never thought I'd say this. I've got a favourite economist and he won the Nobel Prize. The guy's name's Darren Acemoglu, wrote a book, Power and Progress. Fantastic. Looks at technology over 1,000 years and makes this thesis that productivity doesn't come when there is automation and job replacement. Productivity comes when workers are given new tools to come up with new opportunities for their skills. And it's quite profound, and it's really also quite depressing that Labor hasn't latched onto it. Like, we've got the freaking Nobel Prize singing our song and no one's really doing it with any conviction. The economy, there's some weird stuff going on at the moment in the tech industry. There's this little incestuous group that gravitates around Andrew Charlton, who made all his money in tech. And there's Charlton, who's got this role as digital assistant minister. There's the Tech Council of Australia. There's Charlton's old company, Mandela, that's now run by a guy that worked, I won't name them all, but there'll be a piece on it soon. There's people lobbying for OpenAI, but they're all part of the same group and they all use the same modelling. So on dodgy modelling, they've found that they've come to the conclusion that the productivity savings will cut X number of hours on average across the economy, and we're all going to be $4,300 a year better off. That's the number. So I did have a spray yesterday, like the trade-off for $4,300 a year, which will not be distributed evenly because none of you people will get it, no journalists will get it, nobody that's actually got a job that's going to be replaced by AI is going to get it, but somehow the economy is going to be $4,300 a year better off. And you watch the way it's being played out through the media, like lots of stories about AI shiny this, AI shiny that, and then the politicians basically saying we've got to unleash the opportunities. I don't know if people saw Scott Farquhar's speech at the press club. He basically said to get that, we need to do three things. We need to get rid of copyright law so there's a general right to mine data, which is basic. We can talk about that in a sec. We've got to rapidly invest in data centers because the other thing is these machines use huge amounts of energy. In the US, the projection is over the next 5 years, it goes from 5% of the grid to 12% of the grid. So all the learning, so-called, which is processing of information, needs to go through fixed centers that use a lot of energy and get really, really hot. So use a lot of what they call potable water, which is drinking water. And they're looking for bases to do this. And the third bit of Farquhar's agenda is, so we want to set up Australia as this nirvana of data centres. And then, oh, by the way, we need to suspend Australian law so you've got digital embassies so other countries don't need to comply with Australian law while they're operating their energy-sucking centres in our country. So that's the economic story. The democracy one, I think, is harder because it's almost being given to us as a fait accompli. It's being driven by global corporations that are really powerful, that have so much money to, if you look at their lobbying efforts, they just cherry pick all the most connected people. They are in Canberra every day. We're on the outside. You know, we've got some friends from MIA here who are trying to organise creative workers. I know from, like, we can't get meetings, but these guys are in there every day because they can invest behind it. So, yeah, that's all very upbeat, isn't it? And I'll tell you the other thing though, we are more reflective of the Australian public than the people saying opportunity, opportunity, opportunity. We run a regular check-in with the Essential Report, and it's, when you say opportunity risk, it's about 65, I think, Claude, can't even remember, 65, 35 regularly that people see it's more risk than opportunity. So, how are we going? Does that all sort of vaguely make sense? I'm going to do a quiz now. Who's ready to do the quiz? AI or human? So this is, you've got to get your phone out. There's a prize here. There's a free drink, whoever wins this. So this is our special quiz. If everyone get in there, I'm still working. This is more to check the tech. Sorry, I'm going to go a bit over, Wisa. Is that okay? Everyone having fun? Good. Okay. So how do I start quiz? I could well fuck this up. I'm going to hit start quiz and then Rebecca's going to hit play. Oh no, there's a few more coming in. Let's see if I can make this work. Answer quickly to get more points. So look at your advice. So put the music on. Is this bit of music human or AI?
Dust on the wind, boots on the ground, smoke in the sky, no peace found. Rivers run red, drums roll slow.
Did you guys have to vote before you actually heard the music then? So well, that's a bug I'll have to work out. So if you said AI, you're right. That's a band called Velvet Sundown. It makes me vomit to even say it. They're an AI-created band, over 3.2 million downloads of that song on Spotify, which is all real estate that real performers aren't getting anymore. The jury's out. There is a school of thought that it was a hoax, but it's basically, and you read the lyrics and it's clearly AI, but there's that kind of Laurel Canyon sort of thing going on there that almost makes it credible. So that's the sort of slop being served up on the interweb at the moment, and being actively promoted by platforms like Spotify, which is meant to be promoting culture. So the next one's going to be some written lyrics. So is this... Oh, I've got to hit the next one. Sorry. How do we work this? I'll just read it. Don't feel like it. So, in the depths of the night, I hear a call, a voice that echoes through the hall. It's a siren song that pulls me in, takes me to a place where I can't begin. Oh. Do I have to go start quiz again? Maybe I do. Do you want me to do it again? In the depths of the night, I hear a call, a voice that echoes through the hall. It's a siren song that pulls me in, takes me to a place where I can't begin. Well, you've got a lot of time to count down. Shall I read it one more time? So this is a bug in the quiz that I'm going to need to get right before we do this properly. This, again, was AI. This was actually something that turned up in... a guy asked one of the GPTs to come up with lyrics in the style of Nick Cave. And Nick Cave wrote the most wonderful piece in his Red Letters online, Red Hand Files. He called it a replication of travesty. I just want to quote him because I think it talks to something that's going on here. Songs arise out of suffering, by which I mean they are predicated on the complex internal human struggle of creation and, well, as far as I know, algorithms don't feel. Data doesn't suffer. ChatGPT has no inner being. It has been nowhere. It has endured nothing. It does not have it has not had the audacity to reach beyond its limitations, and hence it doesn't have the capacity for a shared transcendence experience, as it has no limitations from which to transcend. ChatGPT's melancholy role is that it is destined to imitate and can never have an authentic human experience, no matter how devalued and inconsequential the human experience may in time become. And I'll tell you what else, ChatGPT could not write that. You know, like what we are, particularly with our creators, putting at risk at this moment, I think is incredibly profound. Last question in the quiz. And again, maybe play it, because I think they're in there. I'll hit start quiz. Have you got that one, Meredith? No, you've got performance anxiety. Oh, here we go.
You don't like roller coasters. How could you ever love a girl like me? I took you to the end of my street, so you could see my bones, a couple of pencils.
Oh, she's going to hate that. Although that feels like the same results coming up each time. Maybe I've totally buggered the whole thing up. Who's vote goat? Where?
I think I'm very, yeah.
Ah, did you get 3 out of 3 very quickly too? So basically, that is Jack River, who is a real person, who is also the very wonderful Holly Rankin, who is organising a whole bunch of young musicians at the moment. She put up a really good post on this last week that's gone like 80,000 reactions and everything. And we're working with Holly to really elevate her voice and trying to get some funding to take her on the road with the road show. Although I don't think she'll actually play, but hopefully get her up there. So it's also not just musicians. About 2 years ago, there was this famous breach called the Book 3 data breach, where about 190,000 books were scraped to train AI, including mine, I might add. And I didn't know when they put the whole database up there whether I should be chuffed that they decided to steal off me or pissed off that they'd stolen off me, but I ended up being pissed off. And And then what happens with all that stuff? It doesn't automatically become AI. It's all sent off to really low wage, like gig workers in the lowest of lowest paid countries, then tagging images, tagging words, answering questions, responding to prompts for like cents. And like a whole day's work, under $1, totally reliant on platforms that move depending where the money is the lowest. And so the exploitation of creators in the first world then leads to the exploitation of vulnerable people in the third world. Where am I going to go after that? There's also the issues around Indigenous IP, not IP, Indigenous culture that is just being scraped and repurposed. And I think it's not to say that there isn't value in all of this, but it has to be done with agency and from the ground up. So I don't know where I was going to take this after that. In the show, this is the point where we bring a politician up and get Lizzie O'Shea, who does this really terrific audit of different politicians' digital footprints to tell them how much of their information is actually out there in the public and how much we can refer. Because the other elephant in the room in all this stuff is that we have not had our privacy laws updated in any meaningful way in 40 years, since before the internet. So, whenever you go into a site and you click the box to access it, you're signing hundreds of pages of agreements to have your data used in all sorts of ways, and that's how the scraping and the learning occurs. So, I do want to ask people their main source of news. The other part of this story, and I don't know how far we'll go into it tonight, because I am conscious. How long do we got? About 5-10 more minutes, guys, or? Yeah. Get moving. The destruction of the media is a real thing. The media companies are not quite the same at the moment as the creators, because a number of them have already done deals to access their content to some of the models. And, there is an argument that if you want to be building really smart search engines, you may as well preference fact-based content rather than just slop from the entire internet. But these things scrape Reddit. They scrape social media feeds. They're scraping whatever they can get their hands on then to get these poor people to code them so that they can pretend that they're thinking. The other thing I'd say is that this whole thinking thing, have people heard of AGI, which is the idea that this technology is going to think for themselves. And they've all convinced themselves that they're going to make this technology that's actually as smart as a human. It's actually what's been driving the race to get the technology out the door quickly. Karen Howell's amazing book, The Empire of AI, which is about the rise and bastardization of OpenAI, which started as a not-for-profit focused on good and turned into just another big tech company swallowed up by Microsoft, is really worth a read. She was out in Australia last week. But one of the points she makes is that the justification for moving fast is we've got to get there first, or the Chinese are going to get there first and they're going to take over the world. And it's allowed a whole lot of things to be brought to market before they're ready and before they're tested, and the preferencing of sales over safety. So the media is part of it. We'll talk about that in the show, but I won't. I think we've all talked about how bad the media... And look, the destruction of the media isn't just because of AI. The media they lost their advertising business model with Google search. But I think what's interesting now is that, particularly for those of you that use, if you do Google now, you get the Copilot sort of doing the AI summary, and so they're stopping the click. So even if you want to get news now, there's this sense you don't need to click into the primary source, which means that there is no real model to get people to come into the news sites. And again, if we care about democracy, what are the models, apart from publicly funding, ABC, SBS, that are going to be ongoing? There are a number of... We were joking before that, in the old days, this would have been a young journalist sort of network, but there are no journalist jobs anymore, so the old journalists sort of moved out of journalism, and here we are. So, open-ender. I thought, at this point, we're going to sort of start talking a bit more about democracy. People, is this working? Are people still with us? Yeah, good. So, you tell me, how can democracy survive AI? Give me some ideas. Everyone go in and do the open-ended, at least enough to half fill the screen so I don't feel embarrassed. Open to a roving mic at some point. How can democracy survive AI? That's good, regulate it. Come up with a tool that allows people to type quicker. That was really interesting. The misinformation bill failed in the last parliament because there became this huge scare campaign propagated by the right and News Limited that it was a denial of freedom of speech. It was actually a platform regulation bill. All it was asking was for the major tech companies to have risk management plans in place that would actually mean that if something went bad, particularly around catastrophic events like weather events or pandemics, that there was a process in place, and that became a restraint on freedom of speech. And that's gone a lot further backwards, obviously, with the influence of Trump. Transparency in tech, teach media literacy, yes. Actually teach people how this stuff works as well. Like, I was in this meeting this morning with people that were quite senior in the publishing industry and the media, and no one could actually explain how the technology works. Like, there is that asymmetry of knowledge going on here that is quite remarkable. Get voters to stop doing their own research on, yes. Digital service tax, love it. Thank you, Tony, I guess it's you, be a Luddite, break the machines. Digital services tax, you're obviously vibing it to somebody else. So some of these things are really hard in the current environment because Trump is trying to tie the regulation part also to trade and tariffs. People more engaged on civics, yes. Protect the privacy and intellectual property, tax the tech courts, these are all great. So, although I actually think this is a trick question, my answer to how can democracy survive AI is democracy. And we don't do democracy. Our problem in Australia is our idea of democracy is an election every 3 years and then no more engagement. Last year I was really inspired working with Per Capita to bring Audrey Tang out to Australia. Audrey was the Digital Services Minister in Taiwan who created an always-on deliberation with citizens using technology, using AI to preference. Eddie, who's here somewhere, and I are both aficionados of Audrey's work, and we've been trying like crazy to get people using the ideas, but they've got a platform called Polis, where instead of algorithmically preferencing points of conflict, which is what the attention economy does, we algorithmically preference the points of connection from people that start from disparate positions. Audrey took the trust in government in Taiwan from under 10% to into the 80s at the time of COVID, and is now a bit of a world leader in talking through that if people are interested in their work. The world's first non-binary cabinet minister who preached an idea of moving beyond the binary to plurality. There's a really good long feature in The Guardian from last year that's worth Googling. You see what, I do it too. And then you'll get the summary and you won't need to read it at all. And also a very challenging book called Plurality that Audrey wrote with about 100 collaborators, which is an absolute punish, but there is some really good stuff in there. The other guy that's worth having a look at is a guy called Dan McQuillan, who is an academic from Britain who really champions the idea of works councils, which is also something Acemoglu calls for, that you need worker democracy, you need local democracy about how this technology is brought in. It almost goes back to, the mantra that Shoshana Zuboff raised around big tech in her book, The Rise of Surveillance Capitalism, which is who knows, who decides, who decides, who decides. And if we're not deciding who decides, we've lost control, and that's when democracy goes to die. There's probably a scroll there, but that's beyond my capability at the moment. Do you want to see if you can... We can share the thing at the end. Are there any more scrolls there, Meredith, if we go on to the lovely Holly's... I don't even know how to work that. Yeah, let's see. Thank you. Education and regulation. People more... I think the civics bit is so... But also it's the conversations. Like how many people feel that these conversations are easy to have, or is it just that you feel like it's being all thrown down? What do you call it? It's not thrown down your throat, shoved down your throat. Just think that might be one we can put up too. But thank you, everyone. That's all really good. You know, but I think that one's really interesting. The sense of inevitability, which I don't. This is a segue into my last question, actually. You know, if you think this is important, where should we focus? And it shouldn't be where will you, but where should we focus? Do we resist? Do we regulate? Or do we reimagine? Obviously, the people in the Young Policy Network are going to be regulating because that's what we do. Oh, look at this. That's really good to do a percentage because it looks like more people are doing it. That 11 is one. And I think one of the things here is it's not necessarily mutually exclusive. But I must say my journey, when I started getting into the tech stuff, I was a big regulator guy. I thought we could just regulate this. I'm not convinced now that it's regulatable. I also think there is a real, like this is not, the model of AI that's being imposed on us at the moment by the big American tech courts with the backing of Trump is not the only model of how technology can work. The idea of large language, you know, these edifices that everyone plugs into. Johanna Weaver, who runs the Tech Policy Centre, makes the point in a really good article in the Journal of Foreign Affairs that the Chinese model is very different. Uses a lot less energy. It's not trying to get other countries to plug into their machine. It's trying to diffuse, so you almost have smaller models. Now, it's not saying we want to be part of the Chinese tech, industrial complex any more than we want to be part of the American industrial complex, which is really what we are. Like AUKUS is going to embed American tech in Australia as much as American defence. So is there an argument for different models? Asimoglu talks about smaller models. So rather than having these big, large language models hoovering everything up, you use the technology with people's consent to solve specific problems. And, you know, you ask the industry what are the problems they're solving. Oh, it's going to cure cancer. Oh, it's going to, you know, the last one is, oh, it's going to fix the housing crisis because we're going to process things quicker. It's going to solve climate change. I don't, like, as if it's just going to start thinking, which is the problem. So I've got to say, I reckon unless we resist, the chances of regulating or reimagining are pretty slim. I think that makes you seem crazy and an outlier. I think it makes you way out. But I also think unless there is some friction in this, they're just barreling on like nobody's business. So I guess the point, one of the things we were going to do at the end of these, and we are going to do one in Melbourne at the end of October, which you guys will all be in the green room because you've helped me work it out, is at the end, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Oh, God, I'm hopeless. At the end, everyone would get a little sticker with their colour on, and the reimaginers could go and talk together, the regulators could go and talk together, and all the resistors could come and talk to me. So, hey? Well, that's the thing, because it shouldn't be binary or even trinary. It should, and look, that's the point, Eddie. It's not all mutually exclusive, but it all should work. But I think, for me, the one thing to say is that on current course of action, I don't think it's, you know, if you look at where we are at the moment, is it good for equality? No. Is it good for jobs? No. Is it good for the environment? No. Is it good for culture? No. Is it good for democracy? No. So what the fuck are we going to do about it? So on that note, I'll let you guys go back to networking, but thank you for letting me play. At the end, if there's anything you think didn't quite work or anything you reckon would add, you're probably a slightly more engaged audience than the one I think we're going to get, but There you go. And then at the end of that, I'll give you that for a few minutes, and then I'm going to leave a slide that has a link into one of the projects that we're working on, and a number of people here are part of it, the Democracy Sandpit, which is this idea of building a closed network to see how that works, to share ideas, information, readings and things, which is also supporting part of the Burning Platforms project. So thank you for your attention and engagement. Oh, questions. Yeah, do people want to ask questions? Yeah, sure. Because I've just talked at you for an hour. So go.
So you talked a lot about the risks of AI and the way that you see this future kind of percolating and the control that some of these large language models have seemingly over our economics and our future, I guess. Do you see a positive future for AI? That we can exist hand in hand and use it as a tool, so that we used flint and arrows and bows?
I think it starts with pricking the idea of AI and start talking about what it is, which is fast processing of information, predictive text, recommendation models. There's a fantastic book called The AI Con by a woman called Emily Bender that I'd recommend. She also does an amazing podcast called AI Hype Machine, where she's a linguist and she works with a number of other experts. And the podcast is basically just reading marketing shit from AI companies and unpacking it. So I think, look, I'm going to say I'm not a Luddite. I am a Luddite, but I do think that there are positive uses for faster processing of information. I think there are targeted uses for taking huge amounts of data with people's consent to solve agreed problems. That's what this stuff should be for. Instead, it's being sold as this brain that we all tap into without any thought on what the negative consequences will be. There's cases in the US where kids have committed suicide, egged on by their AI companions. There is just, the takeover of the therapy industry, I think, is really problematic. There's a philanthropy in Australia whose solution to the inequality in education is to give kids from underprivileged backgrounds an AI tutor. On one level, sure, but it's also quite dystopian. Old people who are lonely, give them an AI companion. I just feel like it's not the technology, it's the way it's being portrayed and then the way it's being used that I think deserves some critical thought. Tony, another young policymaker.
Forever young. Peter, Labor is very proud of its Chifley moment with industrialisation and modernisation. And Rudd apparently on a beer coaster down the road in Carlton came up with the idea of a laptop for every kid. But they really love the idea of being modern and the Liberals are old-fashioned, and we drive industrial development. I can't wait for the Charlton article. But what's going on? Labor, you wrote a book, you wrote 3 books, you work for them. Don't they read this? Don't they get that this is back to the days of capitalism thing, and that they need to be there about the relations of production to use the market, the economic relations.
Yeah, when Acemoglu got awarded the Nobel Prize at the end of last year, I thought there'd be a lap of honour. I thought they'd be trying to get him out of Australia. But instead they were all reading Ezra Klein's Abundance. And do people know about this? And so he's a New York Times columnist, he's an affable fellow, he does a podcast, and he had this thought, the left ties government up in knots, which has become a philosophy that it's such a convenient philosophy for business to say the way for abundance is to get out of the way government, and Labor is kind of lent in heavily behind it. Everyone from Chalmers to Andrew Lee, they're all sort of abundance acolytes. So we had a choice out of work a voice or get rid of government, and we've gone for get rid of government. And I'm really worried that it's going to lead the government astray. Even on housing, it's not as big, you guys had the big build down here, which kind of was government investment. We've got abundance housing policy in New South Wales at the moment, which is get rid of any planning laws. Developers can do whatever they want because planning has got in the way of building stuff, and it's just destroying communities. So, but you know, let's not kid ourselves. Labor's tight connections are not people like us. They're people who can afford to be part of the Labor business friendship group, who can afford to hire lobbyists to be in the parliament every day of the week, and they're winning. And we've got a government with more power than ever, and we all were great. We were also happy on election night when Dutton lost and Albo got the huge majority. But this is what we've got, and where is the friction? So I do think there is a duty here to push them on some of this stuff because, you know, again, they're not here. They were at the Tech Council Summit and Ball last night. Like, that's how this thing's working at the moment. Well, gala, I think it was called, a gala.
Question? Oh, sorry. Oh, no, sorry. I didn't know you were looking. Why don't you think AI can be regulated? What makes you say that?
I think there are two challenges. So the first is that it's moving so fast that the regulations is always playing catch up. The second is that the power to organise and resist, and once, like, regulation sounds great, but for young policy, the way regulation works is you get a good idea, there might be a Senate inquiry, everyone puts their evidence in, there might be a process that goes to a paper that becomes a bit of legislation that goes into the House, that then goes into the Senate, and every bit of that is contested. And the energy of normal people to be part of that process compared to the professional classes to their outcome. Now, if I was king of the world, which thank God I'm not, rather than looking to regulate, I'd have one rule, which was an extension of, you know how workers' comp works? Every employer has a general duty of care to provide a safe place of work. Everyone using AI has a duty of care to ensure it's safe. And then if shit goes wrong, they're liable for it. The reason we don't have smoking in pubs is not because public health people won that campaign. It was because guys behind the bar, people that were getting lung disease, it was outlawed because of OH&S. So this is a really interesting mechanism, the general duty of care not to harm others. And I think that's the way we get through this. And then, for instance, I would advocate, if you're a business bringing it in and you don't have a works council managing the adaptation, you're liable when things fuck up. And this stuff is really flaky, and things can go wrong.
Last question.
We killed them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a really interesting conversation. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you for having me. It was great. And we can continue it. We need little stickers for everyone, though. Particularly any resistors, come and see me at the bar. I'm buying the drinks.
And if you haven't joined,
Oh, you're the resistor. I've already bought you a drink. But there are good uses. So Kirsten works in disability. There is some great uses of AI. There's a young guy who's one of the leaders of the Cerebral Palsy Alliance who basically speaks through eye recognition, and this technology gives him a voice. So it's not all technology's bad, but the models are so bad. Sorry, I guess. And if you do want to join the Sandpit, just link through there. We're a very select group at the moment, aren't we, Margot and Eddie? We're looking for some more people to share ideas. We're kind of got 90 people, and there are about a dozen of us sort of hang around and are active. But we're trying to create this world where, is it enough to have a small group of people to share ideas so you don't need to be spraying it on LinkedIn, which is a horrible place, or just performing on Instagram? So if you want to join us, you're very welcome there too.
thank you. And if you haven't joined us, please make sure that you connect with us. And if you are listening to this online, please hit the subscribe button so we can contact you and let you know when new episodes come up. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.